This podcast is all about getting divorced without losing your mind, where Corey Shapiro, a seasoned New York City divorce attorney, shares valuable insights from his book, Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind. He'll teach you how to be more creative and less reactive in your divorce. He also dives into discussions with experts and thought leaders on navigating divorce intelligently and calmly.
Welcome to the Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind podcast. This is Corey Shapiro. I welcome you working on your business, not just in your business. You work in your business with your divorce attorney. This podcast, we work on the business. We work on our vision, on our strategy, and most important, on our reactions, on our self-management. We do that so we are increasing the chances of getting a divorce without losing our mind, primarily for the benefit of our children's well-being. So welcome to the podcast. If you're in a difficult divorce, you are in the right place. Let's work on some strategy, and let's keep this short and tight because I know you got a lot of things to do. So first of all, we're focusing on our chaos. We're focusing on chaos. That's the episode today. It might be many of our episodes, but we're working on when we don't feel confident. But we want to be hopeful. Something is important happening, and we're concerned. And this is continuing our journey on 5 tips I have from chapter 3 of my book, Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind, which of course is available on Amazon for you to read. You can also listen to the audiobook or just listen to our podcast season and absorb. This is my latest thinking on this subject, and my thinking evolves. So let's go through the 5 tips just in case you are new to this 5-part series. So tip number 1 is prepare for the long war. Tip number 2 is we're going to resist the internal and external pressure to act on the spur of the moment. Tip number 3, which we're doing today, is to be hopeful, even when we don't feel confident. And tip number 4 is we're going to resolve not to escalate. And tip number 5, oh, you guessed it, our favorite, do nothing. But before we get into that, let's start with our quote. It's from Abraham Lincoln. I was thinking of Abraham Lincoln as a baby, and I love that. Baby Abe or Baby Abe. I think that works really well. My apologies, President. All kidding aside, such a wise man. And his quote that I think really helps us center ourselves for this episode is, "This too shall pass." Isn't that so true? Isn't that so true? Most things do seem to work out. So let me give you 3 thoughts I have to really drill this concept home. The first thought I have is think about things like a roller coaster. You know, there's going to be some surprises. There's going to be some drama. It's going to move fast, sometimes slow. But if all goes according to plan, you're going to get off that roller coaster a changed person. And that's really what a difficult divorce is. You're going along on this ride, and it's going to turn you upside down, spin you all around. But you are going to hopefully wind up okay on the other side. And the more we work on the divorce, the more we see what these tactics are that's making everything so crazy and making us react in a way we don't want to react. But we're reacting in the short term. We're doing things that maybe hurt our long-term best interests, maybe even hurt our children's best interests. That's what we're doing here when we're thinking about the roller coaster. The second concept is think about a window frame. And I want you to think about perspective. And the perspective of a window frame is, which way are we looking? Are we looking in or out? So if we're looking into a window frame and we're outside looking in, and let's say it's in an apartment, maybe our perspective is we would say, it looks very cozy and there's a fireplace. But if we're inside in the apartment looking out, and maybe it's a really cold day, we're saying, hey, there's a snowstorm outside. And the trick in these difficult divorces is accepting that both of those perceptions may be true. May be true, even if it's only in their mind, depending on their perspective. And the goal when you're working in your divorce is developing that compelling vision to frame the issues in a way so the judge sees it the way you want to see it from your perspective. All right, the third idea is to realize things. Listen, there's no shame to be anxious, to be stressed, to be uncomfortable during this process. Don't think about the lawyers who've been through this many times before. Think of yourself as a freshman coming into school for that first week, coming to college, coming into that university. It could be overwhelming, and that's typical. And maybe, the judges or the attorneys are like seniors or even fifth year students, grad students, relaxed. That's not how it is the first time until you really get the lay of the land. That's why it's so important to really think about the strategy, really think about what's going on. And we do that on this podcast each week. We help you get divorced without losing your mind. So let me just tell you a short story to drill this home, to help you be a little bit more hopeful when you're not confident. I had a client in my day job as a divorce attorney. I had a client who wanted to reduce his child support. And that's sometimes a tough challenge. I don't know anyone who's receiving child support is going to voluntarily say, oh, okay, yeah, sure, let's reduce it. It's usually the opposite. It's usually let's increase it. So it's a tough challenge. But I looked at the agreement, which wasn't prepared by me. It didn't seem to follow the law. You have to be very specific in the language you use, especially here in New York. It didn't seem that language was used. So I went to court, made my arguments, and let's just say the court was less than thrilled with me. First of all, they probably viewed my client as a deadbeat dad. Secondly, they weren't really getting into the weeds and what I was talking about. So they just basically put their hands up. They're like, get out of my courtroom. No. But the judge had to make a decision, and thankfully, the judge did not rule from the bench, which they generally don't do. They can just make an immediate ruling. The judge says, okay, let me read these papers and I'll get back to you. So they're going to think about things. And a few months goes by, and I learn when the decision comes out that the judge went our way. And we were hopeful that the judge was going to look at the law, but we were also not so confident because emotionally, the judge is right. It's a tough situation to reduce child support. So that was a situation where really wonderful example of being hopeful when you're less than confident. All right, let's think about an exercise that you can do. Yes, you could do this exercise to really drill this material down even further. It's just optional, but if you want to really get the most out of it, think about this question. When my confidence dips, what 3 actions can boost my confidence in those times? So for me, I think step number 1 would be journaling. So I can just sort of unload my thoughts, take that pressure off my brain. If that's not really working, I might seek wiser people. If it's really stressing me out, maybe even a therapist. If it's a certain, subject matter expertise someone might have, I might reach out to them. And if I feel like I don't really want to spend the money on that, I might just read a really good book to get the lay of the land. And that's the idea of this podcast. I want to give you this information where it's really no cost to you. So you have it and you can live, you can have a better divorce, and your better divorce helps your children have better lives. So it's about you having a better life. It's about your children having a better life. And I just think that is a real gift for all of us and needs to be reinforced, because sometimes during these tough times, it's hard to look at the long term and we might not see it. When we're in that ditch and we're in that roller coaster, it's just so hard to think when it's going to end or we're going to escape. So thank you for trusting me. Thank you for showing up to work on your divorce, working on your strategy, on your vision. on your self-management. And yeah, you are going to get divorced. And if you be creative and you're not reactive, you too may get a divorce without losing your mind. Next episode, we're dealing with resolving not to escalate. We're just going to put like a cap on how high we're going to go. Kind of reminds me when I was a kid, my dad's like, you can't hit your sister. That was just a rule. Can't hit your sister. And of course I got into trouble because I did hit her after the rule. And my dad's like, what's your problem? I told you not to hit your sister. And as a budding lawyer, I said, she hit me first, Dad. And I thought that was an exception. Didn't say those words, but that just say there was no exception. And unfortunately, my sister was 4 years older. I'm just wondering why it couldn't be the rule that no one hits anyone. No siblings hit anyone. But that's just what this reminds me of. So we're going to deal with resolving not to escalate next time on the podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind podcast. We would love to hear your feedback. Send Corey an email to feedback@gettingdivorced.org. And if you've read his book, please consider leaving an Amazon review. This podcast offers general information only. It cannot replace legal advice. If you need tailored advice, contact an attorney licensed to practice in your area.